It's Monday, October 13th, and we have actually a pretty rare setup for some severe weather today. We actually have a marginal risk situated over the Southern California and greater Los Angeles area. This area is kind of known for its really good weather, so it's very rare to see a severe weather risk out here pretty much any time of the year, but we do have one today. On the other hand, we do have some more typical stuff that has just kind of been the pattern over the past couple of weeks. We're expecting to see some more severe weather out here in parts of the Southwest today, kind of on that New Mexico, Arizona border is going to be the hot spot, and then stretching out from that all the way up into parts of Idaho and then the southern plains as well. We could see some thunderstorm activity, and then some storms from that nor'easter are still going to be impacting parts of New England today as well. Now, the main concern with all of our severe weather, however, is going to be a damaging wind threat, potentially seeing some 60-mile-an-hour gust or just an excess of 60-mile-an-hour winds today in all of our marginal risk areas. And then for that hail threat, it's only going to be with our southwestern risk area. And that could potentially be for some 1 to 1.5 inch in diameter hail, but we're really not going to expect to see anything above that. Now, starting with our more rare area of concern that we don't really see a lot out here in Southern California, what's going to be causing it, we're having a cyclone kind of trace down southward along the Pacific coast. Then it's going to kind of come on shore just north of that area in the Southern California region, bringing a lot of storms with it. It's really going to bring a lot of organizing shear, potentially bringing the possibility for a couple of organized clusters, bringing those severe characteristics. But really, along the late afternoon hours is when we could potentially start seeing some severe weather in that region. But in more parts near San Francisco, we could potentially see it even in the morning hours. Likely wouldn't be severe, just a lot of rainy, showery weather, potentially some thunderstorms, and then just a lot of rain kind of tracing down south from San Francisco all the way down to LA in that period between midday and the late afternoon and evening. However, our weather in the Southwest is going to follow a bit of a different time frame. We're going to start to see some storm initiation kind of along the right before lunchtime hours, pretty much around midday. We're not really going to start to see those storms get their act together until the afternoon, and then they'll start likely becoming severe really in the early afternoon hours, and then by around the evening they'll likely be gone, just showery storms at that point, mostly bringing a flooding threat then. And then on radar, our nor'easter doesn't really look super clear on where it actually is, but most of the impacts today going to be felt up here in New England. And the first thing I want to look at is actually going to be the wind gust from this. Likely a lot of the wind gusts are going to be felt in the morning. We could potentially see some wind gusts up to 45 miles an hour in this region, kind of stretching down from Cape Cod all the way through New Jersey and even including New York City. So likely going to be very windy. Hopefully nothing is going to be damaged with 45-mile-an-hour gusts. That's really not something crazy, still just something to be aware of for sure. And then for our rainfall totals, those could actually be somewhat high. We could potentially see up to 5 inches of rainfall in some parts of New England today. The likelihood of seeing the highest parts are, however, going to be in eastern Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Now, talking about that flooding threat, of course, it's going to be highlighted here by the Storm Prediction Center. We have a marginal risk out here in that area I just mentioned in New England, but of course, we are going to have a couple more out west. One is going to be in that California risk area with a lot of rain brought from that cyclone. You kind of see how much rain was being dumped from that simulated reflectivity from the HRRR, and then the same thing goes for our southwestern risk area. We actually have a couple of slight risk, which kind of are a bit higher, likely seeing around 2 to 4 inches of rain in those areas. And in that marginal risk kind of surrounding that, it's pretty big, covers a lot of New Mexico and Arizona, maybe potentially seeing 1 to 2 inches of rain within that. And that goes for all the other marginal risk as well. But moving back to the why behind our weather today, is going to be pretty obvious where that big cyclone is off the California coast, kind of bringing a lot of our storms today. And we're actually going to see this big plume of flow right when we're expecting for that severe weather to start. This is kind of the reason why we think we're going to get it. There's not a bunch of cape down here, but this will bring tons of forcing and tons of organizing shear, potentially bringing a couple of organized clusters with some severe characteristics, maybe some wind gusts in excess of 60 miles an hour. And then moving back to the southwestern region, again, just a lot of flow and forcing. That's kind of why we're seeing that messy storm mode today, even a bit of a trough, kind of maybe a short wave moving through as well. That's actually why we might get that little start, kind of that plume of kind of storm activity down here, and then it moves north along this line of flow. You can actually see that our storm path almost perfectly mirrors where our jet stream is going, but that's why we're going to see that activity down there in the southwest. And then, of course, with our nor'easter, it's kind of painted, it's not super condensed, but it is still going to be broad, likely bringing a lot of wind and rain out here to the New England region today as well. And here's a better look at the storm environment today in our Southern California risk area. We can see that a lot of our other ingredients that we normally look for aren't going to be there really at all from the first 3 kilometers in the atmosphere. It's actually going to be relatively stable, not a whole lot of cape either, but this setup is really going to be kind of carried by these super high amounts of bulk shear that we have. 70 knots, definitely something's going to be able to get organized, maybe seeing a severe storm or two in Southern California today, also bringing a lot of forcing. So that's going to explain why there's still that potential, even though a lot of the ingredients we normally look for are just not going to be present. And moving a little bit east to our more southwestern desert risk area, this is definitely something that is a bit more of a classic weather sounding for some severe weather. We have that inverted V, some really solid low level lapse rates. Also, our cloud base is going to be a bit higher. This is a little bit more supportive of that hail and wind threat. Maybe aiding in some evaporative cooling, also aiding in some evaporative cooling. It's going to be a low relative humidity, maybe increasing the strength of our downdrafts. Also increasing the strength of our downdrafts is going to be this really high amount of dry air loft, maybe getting dragged down to the surface, kind of increasing the strength of those winds. Also for our cape, we are going to see around 1,000, definitely enough for some storms to get going. And then our 3 cape is going to be nearing 100 as well, also helping with the strength of our storms. And for the shear, another thing that we kind of saw in the California risk area, but another really high amount of bulk shear. So definitely a couple of organized clusters will be able to get going. And then because we have a much more favorable look for ingredients and we have some cape up here near a freezing level, there is also going to be a chance of some updrafts and some hail around 1 to 1.5 inches in diameter in our southwestern risk area. And in the tropics, there has been a new area of invest kind of activated by the National Hurricane Center. It does have a 70 chance of formation, but it's very clear that this is just going to turn out to the Atlantic, not even get close to the United States at all. So there's really nothing to worry about there. And that is the only area of concern right now. Of course, the Central American gyre might be getting going, but of course, there's not really anything within the next week that is concerning at all. So it looks like we could potentially see that first hurricane season in over a decade with no landfalls in the US. It looks like that's getting more likely and likely by the day. So let's hope that that trend stays up.